So this is episode 2 of the RC show, brought to you by RC Nightmare. The crowd is a little bit more behaved this time, so that's good. We've also got a gnat, but we've got some great new mod tools and things like that going on. We're also streaming in closer to HD quality too, so you guys should all appreciate our beauty in full HD. We've got for you a couple different things, but first off, we want to kick it off with a very special guest. His name is Shawn Palmer. He's been in RC a very, very long time, and as you know, the topic of this show, besides Q&A, was the effects of Castle kind of being in all the RTRs out there, and what that's going to mean for everything. And yeah, the dog's here too. So without any further ado, let's bring in Shawn and make sure you guys can hear him okay. And Shawn, if you could just introduce yourself a little bit and let us know who you are, and that'd be great.
Hey everybody, it's Shawn Palmer here. I've been in the industry for quite a while. I started with Castle Producers back in 2003, and got the old Mamba systems for 18 scale, and then the Mamba Max stuff for 10 scale going. And after a while, moved on to Schumacher USA down in Florida, and recently was working with development on some of the racing side with Speed Passion USA, and now I'm retired. I'm on my little piece of heaven here out in the middle of Missouri, hunting and fishing on my own place, and but still go out and racing and flying and the whole thing, and I really like the concept that Jeremy's got going here, and I contacted him a while back, and today I want to be involved and come out and say hi to everybody. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Great. We do appreciate you joining us. Tell us, what were some of the original problems you had with those Mamba systems that are oh so popular these days? It seems every car you buy now comes with a Mamba or some variant of it.
Oh gosh, it's original problems. Well, you know, if we want to go back really far, I've probably got some stories that no one probably really shouldn't be told when it comes down to it. But, oh gosh, you know, some of the real challenges of a car system when those systems really came about, the whole impetus for all of this happening, and I've told the story a couple of times in writing. I don't know if I have in a live show or not, but the whole start of the Mamba was when I first was at Castle in 2003. I hadn't been there but a couple of weeks, and the owner of the company and lead engineer Patrick Del Castillo came by to my office and dropped off a micro RS4 18 scale little 4-wheel drive
I had one
touring
of those.
car.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Dropped one off at my desk. It had a little brushless motor in it, and it had one of our airplane speed controls in it, and it was broke all to heck. He told me that he had just come back from a trade show just before I got hired on to the company, and he was running that around inside the trade show. This was at Toledo, so it was an indoor trade show about the size of 4 or 5 full-size basketball courts, and he was running the car around in there before any of the booths got set up. So he was probably hitting 40, 50 miles an hour indoors.
Wow.
With this little car, and of course that didn't last too long when you're an airplane pilot like he was, and not really much into cars, and you know, have something that small with that much power and speed into it. And he kind of threw it on my desk and said, "Hey, you know, I played with this out at the Toledo show, and the folks that were around seemed to kind of like it. So why don't you put this back together and get it rolling again, see what you think, and if this is something we need to pursue, let me know." And so I got online and pretty much had to buy a couple of cars to get the parts to put it back together again.
Right.
And of course, you know, a little tiny car that's capable of 60 miles an hour that's a little awkward. There's nowhere to run that.
Yeah, right.
And, so trying to, go out and get some test runs in was kind of insane. The brakes were not very good. It was an airplane speed control. It was really what it is. And I personally still have that system. I'm actually looking at it right now. It's a little airplane motor, and it's an airplane speed control that we had in that car with some very rudimentary software. That might have been okay for cars, but that little car was 60 miles an hour, and it was insane. And I went and drove the car, and I drove it enough. It only took about 45 seconds, and I brought it back in the shop the next day, and I told Patrick, I was like, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
This is absolutely a go. There's nothing that's even remotely like this right now in the market. Brushless is, pretty much non-existent in the car world. This car is, I've probably just driven faster than anybody's ever driven before in an RC car. This is a little 18 scale, little teeny little car, and gosh, what could we do? With some bigger stuff, like this, and that's really how it started. It was a little micro RS4, and the owner throwing it on my desk in pieces and saying, "Hey, what do you think?"
So the whole Mamba lineup started in 18 scale. Really, you didn't progress to 10 scale till later on in the Mamba Max series.
Yeah, and that was really on purpose. When we really we had a meeting after that we really decided that we were wanting to go after the car market. The principals in the company, which really at that time were myself, Patrick, the owner, Brenda, his wife, and which was the business manager at that time. We spent many an evening in Brenda's office, kind of going over where the future of the company might go. At that point, I was employee number 7 when I first came on, so we were a tiny company.
Yeah.
We knew we were going big places and we're going to do great things.
And so
we were very small at the time, and I kind of analyzed the market, and I did have some pretty significant experience both in racing cars and flying helicopters and airplanes and the whole gamut of RC, and I knew enough about the car market that I knew in the 10 scale market, which is basically the racing market, whether anybody really wants to understand that or go that far into it or not, racing kind of drives everything,
right.
And I knew being a completely unknown name coming into 10 scale racing or bashing or whatever you want to call it, we'd have one shot. And if we didn't do it, and if we didn't make it well, and if we weren't perfect at that point, it wasn't going to work. And so we kind of looked at some of the alternatives, which was 8 scale at that time, was 18th scale, which was kind of an up and coming style of a market, and I really enjoyed that particular scale at that point, and so we decided, since we really only had one shot and no second chance for 10 scale, that we'd go into 18 scale first. Because the speed and power were just unheard of and ridiculous in that scale, so we know we'd make a really big splash. We knew that market was still kind of young enough and immature enough that if we needed a second and a third chance to kind of get things right, then we could get them right, and then be able to come into the 10 scale market the right way and do things very well, and that turned out to be just a really, really good move. It was exactly what we really needed to do in the long term. So we went after the 18 scale stuff. Before we knew it, we had national champions in 18 scale, and that stuff. We had speed records, going out to wazoo. I was out in parking lots, doing over 100 miles an hour in a Mini T, and just unheard of stuff, at that point, even before we started to, really get into the 10 scale stuff, and so it really allowed us to get it right before we really started going into the 10 scale market, and actually true to kind of the precedent that I set very early in the company in the car market with. As far as my own opinion, we really didn't need to go after the quote racing market, because that's actually a very small market. There's not a lot of not a lot of profit there. It's a lot of R&D and a lot of expenditures and not a lot of sales when it comes down to it. And you know, the way we looked at it right away was, you know, well, okay, we could go after the racing market and sponsor a whole lot of guys and a whole lot of money, you know, and maybe get a little bit of return out of that, or we could give everybody the ability to do 60 miles an hour in their front yard with their Traxxas car. And you know, so you know, we're going to make more money. You know, it's really easy to look at it that way, and that's where we went with with that market right away, and it's until just about a year ago when Castle just kind of started easing its way into the actual racing market, and I think that was probably more because the usership demanded it more than the company wanted to get there. The usership really wanted it to be in that market, and they wanted that brand to be able to run. So it worked out exactly the best way that it should have, for the company, Shawn, for the market as well.
Hey Shawn, let me ask you. First of all, if I haven't done it already, thank you for being here. And as you've already exhibited, you have an enormous amount of knowledge, and having you on the show today is really a treat for us, all the people that are watching now, and all the people that have watched this show retransmitted. So, I mean, you've got, just in what naturally comes off your tongue, so much experience and knowledge that it blows my mind. I was just kind of sitting here looking off into space, and I kind of faded out a little bit because I was like, holy crap, this guy knows a lot.
Well, I can just talk a lot. Yeah. That's my gift.
Yeah. So let me ask you specifically then on like so what's going on right now in the RC space. What you may or may not know is Brandon here. He works at a local hobby town, and the bulk of their business is selling RCs. And I'm more of a basher type with kind of limited RC knowledge, especially in comparison, obviously, to the two people joining me here today. What I'm noticing is, so when I first got an RC and there were a lot of options for a ready-to-run kit, it was extraordinarily difficult to choose between the two. So when I first, let me use the Shortcourse truck for example. When I got into RC, the first RC I ever owned was actually a Slash 4x4.
Oh, cool.
And and I spent hours agonizing over the decision. Many days when I was supposed to be working, using the old Alt tab, switching over, watching YouTube videos, researching as much as I could for Shortcourse trucks. And now that I look back, I really enjoyed that. It made choosing between the two really, really fun.
Sure.
And it kind of gave you some bragging rights, and people run. Back then it was like in the two-wheel drives, we ran through like Kyosho, Team Associated, HPI, Low C, although not so much, and of course the Slash. And then with four-wheel drive, there was really only one option then in terms of a Shortcourse truck. But it was like, when it came down to the Valenion, I was like, oh, this is a bulletproof kit or bulletproof system. It was like a no-brainer. But now, with all the, not just Shortcourse trucks, but seemingly like everything coming out from like Team Associated, or not so much Associated, but like HPI, Low C, Traxxas, all going to Castle. I'm a little bummed out. I thought for sure like Tekin would have gotten the game, or somebody would have chosen a different electronics manufacturer. Do you think the reason at the manufacturer level they're doing it is just to compete on design and not electronics? Or like, do you see this as a win or a loss for the consumer, especially those who buy RTRs more specifically?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of answers to that question.
Okay.
And it really depends on if you're kind of looking at the big picture, or from the manufacturer's point of view, or just the point of view and things like that. And in my perspective, and we don't have to go here, but in my perspective, from the industry side, pretty much everything follows the money. There's an old movie line of follow the money. And that's kind of where things happen, and this is that's why things happen. We don't have to go there because actually this is I think ultimately it's probably a pretty good story for the consumer. And with a show like yours where it's very consumer based and we're just a bunch of guys that go out and run cars and we really like it and we like to go fast and once in a while we want to race and whatever, but we have a really good time with all this stuff and none of us have $17 bajillion to go out and buy a bunch of really expensive stuff that may or may not work. Ultimately it's a consumer market, and the good news about Castle really being dominant in that market from RTR cars is to the consumer. In my time at Castle, I built not really built, but I furthered the company prerogative towards very much being customer service based and consumer service based. To where if we have a customer, a consumer out in the field that is using one of our products that has a problem, we fix the problem. And when I was first hired on with the company, it was just me, so I fixed the problem. Whether I needed to send them a brand new unit or have it repaired very quickly, in house and get them get their unit back to them, and then that grew over the course of the years of hiring a couple of guys, the guys that are there right now, Joe Ford and Bernie Wolford, both guys that I hired and trained, ridiculously awesome people.
So
they understand the concept. Yeah.
You might have serviced my original Mamba 25 then, back in the day.
I probably did.
I had that on RC18, and I might have run it a little hot, so thank you.
Yeah, well, and if it did, and something bad happened, I probably shot you a new one.
Yeah,
and that was, that was the whole point. That was a lot of what built us as a company, from a very small company, back in the day, to the, a fairly good-sized company that it is right now. And the guys that I brought in, Bernie and Joe, awesome guys. They're good people. They really understand the customer base. They want to do everything right, and they're furthering the company by doing well for the customer.
Let me ask you, Shawn.
That's what I was brought in to do. That's how I train them to do. And so in the modern sense of right now, if you go to your local hobby shop and buy a car and it's got a ready to run system that's made by Castle, that automatically gives you the benefit of giving them a call and asking them how to use it, what to do if there's a problem, having it fixed and all that kind of stuff. It's all right here. There's nothing outsourced. There isn't anything in India. There isn't anything in some crazy country in Europe or whatever. It is the actual guys that are in Kansas City right now, and that can help you.
Hey, Shawn. So let me ask you two quick questions then. So I'll make two statements and then I'll let you kind of just respond to them. So I'm more of a so the RC thing is really just it truly is a hobby for me. I work full time. So does Brandon actually, and obviously the show when ABC syndicates it on must see TV or whatever on Monday nights, then we'll be good right before the football games. But I've got a couple questions from the viewers too I want to stick in here. But sure. First, when manufacturers consolidate, I've always been of the mindset that dilutes progress. So once Castle, for example, let's not even say Castle, let's just say any manufacturer, you get an exclusive deal like this, it seems to be like the incentive is no longer on necessarily creating the best. The incentive is more about fulfilling it, customer service and economies of scale. So, like, for our viewers who aren't familiar with that term, I just educated Brandon on it. Shawn, you I'm sure know. But so, like, if you're Castle now, and you're like, oh crap, we've got to really ramp production, and also deal with things like, one of the things with Castle I've always thought is that the lead time on customer service, while it's great, this quality service is great, the timeline is could be better, we'll say.
Sure.
So how do you see, so I guess what I'm asking is, one, how do you see them continuing to push to be the dominant source? Two, how do you think they're going to handle this increase in volume? And question three, somebody asked if, you can answer this one first because it might be yes or no. Do you think, or does Castle have any plans of getting into the Roar spec?
Okay. Well, okay, the last one first, because that's probably the easiest one. I am not employed by Castle anymore.
Yeah.
I don't really speak to them on a professional level on a regular basis anymore, so I will have to cry ignorance on whether they're going to get into the Roar thing or not. Now I can't cry complete ignorance because I do serve on the Roar Executive Committee. So I am among one of the 7 people that basically vote on everything that happens within Roar. Whether what rules does or does not happen, or things like that. So I can't claim complete ignorance on I know nothing about anything. But
how about we just disclaim it, Shawn, by saying, in your opinion, do you think there's a chance of them heading in that direction?
I do think there is.
Yeah.
From what I have heard, just the scuttlebutt amongst and in and through the industry in the last year or two, I do believe that they will probably have a racing product at some point. In the future, whether it's tomorrow or 2 years from now, or who knows. Yeah. I do believe they will have some sanctioned racing approved style product coming. A lot of their products right now are legal for mod racing and things like that. But when we're going down to 17.5, 13.5 style stuff, there really isn't anything there. From their perspective, and I think there will be. I can't claim any insider knowledge on that, but just from the same scuttlebutt that just about anybody else would be involved in, I think it is coming.
Yeah, okay.
I think it really just is a matter of time.
Yeah, that's a fair answer. So then the other two are just, do you think, how do you think they're going to handle the increased volume? And I guess what I'm really curious about is it's like A plus B equals C. I'm really most interested about C being, do you think we're going to see anybody else creeping into the market and trying to kind of take that elite status? Because Castle's always kind of been like the upgrade, right? For like,
for
bashers, it's like, well, I got this stock kit, but I'm putting the Mamba Monster in there or whatever. Now that Castle's coming in all these kits, what are people going to upgrade to now? Or are they going to just not upgrade and they're just going to, what I mean? Like, not speaking as a former Castle employee, but just as someone who has a ton of knowledge I'm always curious. I know Tekin's out there, but they're not much for in the short course, really. In terms of racing, I mean, there's Tekin, there's Novak, but neither one of them, at least in the bashing scene, are really viewed.
When it really, that's probably a pretty easy question as far as what else is there, other than Castle. The answer may be a little bit surprising to a lot of folks. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe everybody kind of sees the same thing that I do. But so the answer, very simply, is it's not a different brand. It really just kind of comes down to a lot more voltage in the batteries and a lot lower kV in the motors.
Okay.
You know, because it's some pretty interesting math. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. When, you know, from a layperson's view, and this kind of knowledge is not really easy to kind of convey, and I don't want to try to make myself seem like I'm some kind of, you know, crazy smart individual or anything, because I'm not.
You are.
You know, I'm a very, you know, lucky individual that got with a company that really taught me a lot, you know, about electronics really early on, and I was able to, you know, help them convey that into a ridiculously successful marketing product. But what when it really comes down to going faster and longer and having a lot more fun and things like that, it's what I think it really comes down to is if the average Joe is out there with a 3S pack in whatever they've got, in their Traxxas Stampede or, you know, whatever. You know, they got their 3S pack and their 5,000 kV brushless motor, you know, from Castle or whatever, you know, 5700 from Castle and 3S, and they think they're going fast. You know, that same guy with a 6S pack and a 3,000 kV motor that's basically going half again faster and doing it for about twice as long. And, you know, maybe even out on the racetrack, you know, doing that kind of stuff, or just, you know, just having more fun, you know, out in the front yard. And his motor's not getting hot, his batteries aren't really getting hot, you know, everything is running a lot cooler and a lot happier, and he's got more speed and more power and running longer, you know, as well. I think that's really where the increased happiness factor comes from. Okay. I don't think it's going to come from another manufacturer, because when it really comes down to it, you know, one of the whole points when I was at Castle was we're going to make this stuff ridiculous fast. We're going to make it ridiculous bulletproof, and, you know, if somebody actually can figure out how to blow it up, then they're going to send it back. We're going to send them a new one, and we're going to figure out how to make that not happen ever again.
That's an interesting point that you bring up, too, because a common phrase I use with my customers who are looking for these upgrades is volt up and gear down. And we're seeing that now with the SCT Pro system, lower kV, higher voltage capable systems. And I think the heli market has kind of proven that. You know, those guys are running 12S systems now.
And that's been going on since like 2002.
Yeah.
You know, 2003. You know, the flight market is so crazy, has always been so crazy ahead of the surface market, and that's, you know, it's one of the things that it's kind of the double life that I've had to lead, you know, over the last 10 years or so, is that the flight market has always been so much further ahead than the surface market has ever been. Mm-hmm. And the surface market kind of always has this attitude, you know, that we're kind of at the top of we're at the top of the game. You know, we're racing, we're Roar, we're IFMAR, and, you know, we're out, you know, we're doing it every day on the track, and there's nothing better than our motors, and our speed controls are awesome, and you know, and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, when it really comes down to it, the average, you know, helicopter system on a little T-Rex that, you know, where the whole helicopter and everything costs $200. You know, the real capabilities of that system in a helicopter is like 10 times what you have in a touring car.
Right.
You know, it's in, you know, for bulletproofness and you know, and all that kind of stuff, and it's, you know, and that's kind of a hard thing to swallow for a lot of the guys in the car market, but you know, and like I said, that's kind of a razor that I've had to walk for a long time.
All you have to do is
I've seen both of them, and I've you know, had to walk in both of those circles.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of crazy to see that, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, this market is so backwards.
Yeah.
You know,
all you have to do really, Shawn, is go to like a show like Ursha and take a car guy there and have him watch some of those guys fly those helis around and tell me they're not pushing the market. But
absolutely.
I think it'll be interesting to see now how everything's going, because as we run higher and higher voltages. I mean, I have a electric bike I run for transportation. I'm running 75 volts, and that's, you know, as we approach these higher voltages, everything else has to follow. Chargers have to be higher voltages, or stepping up the voltage. Everything has to be able to handle these, and you start to deal with things like pre-charge circuits and making it safe for average Joe Schmo to handle 50 volts. You know, it's interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see where we reach the stopping point at. Where can we how far can we push it for the average consumer before we got to actually worry about their health on running 75 or 50 plus volt LiPo systems.
It does exist, that top level to where you are actually concerned about the consumer. But the good news is that with house current, if you get a fork and you chuck the fork into a plug-in socket of your house,
yeah,
you can get hurt.
Yeah,
doing that, and actually you can be killed very quickly, doing that. But that's AC, that's alternating current. And one of the good things about the hobby side, it's all DC, it's all direct current.
Right.
So it's not alternating current like your house, it's DC. Now you can, and I've actually run systems where it's 120 volts. It's basically the same thing as your house current.
Sure.
And you can hold on to the positive and the negative of the battery side, and nothing really happens.
Yeah, right.
Now, if you happen to sharpen that positive side and that negative side and plunge them into your flesh, then you can have some problems.
Right.
With direct current, it could have some negative effects on your heart and the rest of the systems in your body. But that's really the length that you have to do. With that, the interesting thing about about hobby electric systems is it's really not electrocution you have to worry about. What becomes some of the limiting factors when it really comes down to it is the cost of charging systems.
Yeah.
And in some degrees the cost of the packs themselves. Because a 120 volt pack is a whole bunch of packs, or a whole bunch of batteries, all in parallel and in series.
Yep.
So there's a lot of money there to get up to that voltage, and also it's kind of a exponential curve on a speed control side to have the speed control be able to deal with more and more voltage. It costs double and then double again and double that,
right,
to be able to deal with all of that. So it's a little bit self-limiting, when it really comes down to it at this point. But it'll get better, and it's I can look back to kind of the days in 2003, 2004. I was very adamant in having Castle get on to making some 10S and 12S systems, 10 LiPos in series,
yep.
Which is basically 50 volts,
right,
or 40, 50 volts, style series back then, which back then was it's like, holy crap, why do you want that? And now you look at especially in the heli market,
everyone wants
10S and 12S is everywhere.
Yeah,
and that's you almost have to have that to be in competition. So
let me ask Shawn. Again, I really appreciate all the time that you've given us tonight, and I don't want to take up much more of your time, but I wanted to tell the viewers out there. There's actually a lot more. So, like, if you're watching the stream and you see that it says there's like 38 current, that's just showing people that are watching right now on Ustream. Last show, the count said something like 100 or 200, I believe, roughly at Ustream, but we ended up having 1,600 people viewing on our website at the same time.
Right on.
So, if anybody out there, before we're up against here, so before we let you go, I wanted to open it up to the chat. Does anybody out there have a specific question for Shawn?
I did see one question previously. They want to know, what was your first RC car? And I'd like to know specifically, what was the first RC car you tried a Castle system in?
Oh boy. Okay. Well, that's two different answers there.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of my very first RC car. It was an off-brand that my dad actually got us. He got one for him and one for me. This was probably back in, good grief, back in 1985, 1986.
Yep.
Somewhere around there. It was essentially kind of a clone of a Hornet or a Grasshopper.
Sure,
kind of style, and non-upgradable. We had what we had. He stopped racing because I had to carnivore parts off of his car to keep mine going. And no, but the first like actual hobby grade Marcy car that I had, I was dying for Tamiya Fox back in the day, and so this was probably 86, 87, maybe 85, I don't know. But I wanted one of those really bad, and I got it for Christmas. And it took me about 5 days to put it together.
That's how long it takes me to do builds, and that's usually because I start.
Yeah, you know, and I went out and I raced it, and you know, I had an awesome time. I raced that one season and did really well on the plains. You know, back in El Paso, Texas, is you know, where Hal's Hobby Shop, where I started racing. And the next season after that, I had a Kyosho Ultima. You know, just one of my favorite cars still to this very day.
Yeah.
And then so the first car that a Mamba system went in, it depends on which size of the Mamba systems we're talking about. In the 18th scale stuff, and the very first car that any Castle brushless car system ever went in was the HPI Micro RS4.
Oh, there you go. All right.
And so that was, you know, and I don't have that car. That car did not survive. But I do have the system. I do have the motor and the speed control. The motor is actually an airplane motor. The speed control is actually a Phoenix 25 with some mildly worked over software.
Yeah, nice.
To first started going on it.
So people are asking then, like, what's if you still have time? Well, I guess you have loads of time. Like,
oh, sure. Hey, don't retire. I got all night.
Yeah. What now? Like, so most recently, what RC do you really love? And it could be. I mean, you said. I know you said. I don't know if we were off air before, but you did talk about flight, and I know Brando here. He loves flight. I just made my first. I had my first maiden flight, I think, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And
cool.
I was buddy boxing with Brandon. He saved my life a few times. But so, like, overall, what do you think if you could just grab a controller and go outside right now? What would it be?
Oh man.
The house is burning down.
You're getting hard now all of a sudden. You know, see, and it's after dark, so that even kind of narrows it down a little bit. But I've got some associated. Oh gosh, I forget what the name of them are, but the Shortcourse trucks from Associated, the SC10.
SC10, yeah.
I've got a couple of those that have lights on them, with, you know, light buckets in the bodies and all that, and they're really cool to go out and play with at night. I do have some helicopters with some night kits on them, and I've also got some aircraft, fixed-wing airplanes with lights on them as well. You know, around here, being in Missouri, it would probably have to be the aircraft with the lights on them.
Yeah.
But right now, 'cause I can go up really high and do some really fast, really crazy stuff. And the folks around here really aren't used to seeing anything radio controlled at all.
Yeah.
So I would probably have the local police here within about 20 minutes looking for UFOs.
Let me
been there before.
let me tell you where Brandon and I were over by a friend of ours. And we walked in the garage, and he had sitting there a 40%?
Yeah, 40% decathlon.
Decathlon, so like a 12-foot wingspan.
Oh yeah,
full
very nice.
light kit, like tail lights, wing lights. It was unbelievable. Now I flew a slow stick, so I'm probably, like, at the rate I'm going, 70 to 110 years away from flying anything.
You know, as long as the bigger the plane, the easier it is to fly.
Yeah, that's what I'm told.
Yeah.
But
it's more expensive if you do something a little bit weird.
Right. You know, yeah, I think he said he was about 15 grand in, so I don't know if I'll be taking that up, but we'll be going to see him made in that. I think I enjoy watching the giant scales for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think, I guess this will be the last question, guys. So do you think Castle will ever brand, and in your, okay, let me pre-qualify for you. In your retired state of purely opinion, do you think Castle will ever try to put out like a white box in RC or something like that, where they have them on the shelf? too.
Like an RTR on a car or an airplane, or
yeah, like, you know, they've obviously, I mean, they make everything that goes in them. Let's say they go out and they buy a small RC company and they just rebrand it as Castle and put out their own RTR kits. Somebody's asking that in the forum.
You know, from everything that I know of the industry, and also being very close to the ownership and management there, I would doubt it.
Yeah, do what you do best.
You know, when I can't really speak now, you know, to the company now, but when I was there, we were very good at what we did. And we were very happy that we were very good at what we did.
Right.
And we knew where the money was, and we knew where the money wasn't. And we chose not to chase the dream to where it wasn't really going to be, you know, financially beneficial for the company. So and that's kind of a harsh thing to say.
Yeah,
you know,
no, I get it.
You know, looking at that statement just in itself, it's you know, not a very pleasant statement, but that's really business. You know, it's your livelihood and it's your company and all of that kind of thing. You know, if it makes money, then there you go. If you know it's not going to make money, then there's really no point in doing that if all it's really going to do is stroke your ego. So
yeah, well, no, you do what you do best, and that's smart. It's led a lot of companies. Look at HP; they just gave up on tablets. How many hundreds of millions do you think they lost when they threw up their hands and said we can't make tablets? So I definitely understand that, and I wanna extend a really hearty thank you for joining us tonight. If you want to hang out for the Q&A, like, that would be great. If it's getting late by you and you got a jet, that's cool too. But
I got nothing to do.
All right,
that would make me really happy just to answer questions. That's totally fine.
All right, well, so at this point we're going to open it up to Q&A, and you can just hang out there. And I want to give everyone a quick update on what's going on with RC Nightmares. So before we open the Q&A, if you noticed, we've been spending quite a bit of time kind of getting Facebook sites up, like for RC Nightmare, RC Skipper, RC Flight School, Friend of RC. A lot of people are asking, like, why do you have separate YouTube channels? Why do you have separate Facebook pages? Well, it's because not everyone who's into boats is into planes, and not everyone who's into planes is into like what RC Nightmare is, and that's mostly ground stuff. So if we try to bundle everything up into one, you kind of annoy people who, like, maybe they're just into planes. Well, they don't want to get 10 emails about, you know, a new SC10 4x4 review or this or that. So it allows people to kind of just pick what they're interested in. I know we get a lot of questions like, why do you have 5 YouTube channels? Well, that's why. So we can keep everyone kind of happy and not really annoy people with stuff they don't want. So what we did is, instead of developing websites for like Flight School and RC Skipper, where we're going to do boats and things like that, we just made a Facebook page where people can interact with us that way. And then we're going to leave the forum that a lot of you use at rcnightmare.com. We're not going to launch 5 forums because those are the most difficult to keep up on. So that's what's going there. We're going to be doing some filming this weekend. Actually, tomorrow we're going to probably do a bashing video for the SC10 4x4, maybe the T-Max. We're going to finish flight videos for RC Flight School. We're going to do the Beast and the S-Bach. Right? We're going to finish both of those, and those will go into editing probably next week. And we may start doing that